Hare Krishna. Devotees in Brazil have sent me some questions which they'd like me to answer about the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books. First question is, what is your history with book distribution? My history with book distribution begins as being the result of a book that was distributed to someone who wasn't interested in it, and which I eventually read, Krishna Book, Volume 2, part of the Krishna Book trilogy. And reading that book and going to the nearest ISKCON temple, which was over the sea. I was in Ireland at the time, and I crossed over to Great Britain and joined the ISKCON temple. Bhaktivedanta Mana. Shortly thereafter, I was distributing Krishna Book trilogies, and I continued to do so on and off for the next 2 years or so in England and Ireland, on and off, because for some time I was made the treasurer at Bhaktivedanta Mana, which didn't appeal to me at all. I wanted to get back out on book distribution. And bouts of poor health. At one time, due to the cold, wet climate of the British Isles and our own youthful foolishness, I suppose, if we talk over-exuberance, living in unheated vans in the winter and eating inappropriate diet in the name of saving time. I got very sick, and I was in a wheelchair due to muscular problems, and it's good for distributing books, being in a wheelchair. Because people mostly had a charitable disposition, more so to people in wheelchairs. Then I didn't fancy being a cripple at a young age. I joined at age 18, and around, that was age 20 then, I went to India for a warmer climate and the opportunity to be with Srila Prabhupada, I thought, but it was already, he was entering his departure pastimes. Anyway, I went to India specifically with the idea of joining the BBT Library Party, which I did, but it was winding up at the time. I'm just skipping a lot of details here. It was winding up at the time, and we weren't doing many books. So I joined the Book Distribution Party based out of Mayapur, and we started doing a lot of books. I was traveling on the party of Ananda Swarup Prabhu in West Bengal, Bihar, Assam, and Orissa. We visited many places, distributed many books. Then I spent 10 years from 79 to 89 serving under Prabhavishnu Swami, who I'd known in England as a very inspirational devotee. And one thing we all imbibed from the beginning, we all means those of us who are out on book distribution, was the centrality of book distribution to the whole Krishna consciousness project. So he very much had that, and he was pioneering. And I served under him in Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia, Burma, and he was also overseeing Nepal and parts of Bihar, but I wasn't there much. But that was very much in our consciousness that we had to get books translated and published and distributed, and we did it. We didn't have much help at the time. So we did that in all those countries except Burma, because we couldn't do much at the time there. Then, when I took sannyas, one of the first things, very soon, I went out on a traveling Sankirtan party. I took out a traveling Sankirtan party in India, but gradually I came to realize that as a sannyasi, I can get more books distributed, maybe especially in India, by inspiring others to do so, and also by holding public programs, and then after the program you get people to buy books. And I've been doing that. It's pretty much my main personal method of distributing books up to the present time. Public programs or in temples, inspiring disciples to distribute books and others. And recently I've been promoting at public programs and among devotees, buy sets of books, distribute sets of books, and just buy them right on the spot. Now, throughout our movement, there's a push for Bhadra months, for distributing Bhagavatam, but it's not restricted to Bhadra months. Just as book distribution is not restricted to December. So Bhadra months, all right, distribute. Yes, do it, but you can do it throughout the rest of the year also. So that's very briefly my history with book distribution. Even though, one thing I used to do a lot also was traveling in trains in India, distributing books going on long distance train journeys, distributing books on trains. That's also very good. So even though I don't go out personally hand to hand and distribute books, hardly, but I always see it as central to my life in Krishna consciousness, and I try to inculcate that spirit in others also. And like I say, even though I don't go out hand to hand distributing books, by addressing devotees and others, giving talks, and then at the end of the talk inspiring people to take books. There's actually a huge field here in India especially, for white-bodied devotees, especially if they learn a local language. You can distribute many, many books. If you go place to place, preach in the local language, you can go town to town, village to village, preach in the local language and inspire people to take books. It's a great way to distribute books here in India. There's tremendous scope here. But I feel also that holding public programs and getting people to take books, it's not restricted to India. It can and should be done everywhere, apart from hand to hand. There's so many things need to be done. Srila Prabhupada wanted sets of his books in all college and university libraries. He wanted that every gentleman should have a set of his books in America, so there's a lot of work to do. Anyway, question number 2. Would you like to tell us any special stories that happened while distributing books? Well, every book distributed is a special story. We don't remember them all. I don't remember so much from distributing books in Britain and Ireland because we mostly distributed them on a charity basis, with the idea that we got people to take the book and give a donation with the idea of a charitable line. So we couldn't expect so many eureka moments when people say, hey, I got this book, it's wonderful, it's just exactly what I wanted, if we're distributing the book almost as a secondary result of our accepting a donation, which I believe up to the present time is the main method of distributing books in Britain. And it might be hard to change that, because I remember hearing in the early, well, in the 1970s when I was distributing books in England, that Tripurari Brahmacharya at that time and others had come to Britain to show devotees how to distribute big books the way they did in America, but they had not been successful. Maybe it's a different psyche or mentality. So I don't have so many stories like that. I remember once we had our Matador van parked at Shelder Station, and that's in the main station in Calcutta, mostly for local trains. And one youngish woman in white dress with several children, obviously a Bangladeshi refugee widow, came up and saw our books, Gita Gan, asked how much it cost, went out, did some begging, and came back after some time and put together all the paisa needed to get a 1 rupee book. That was something memorable. In England once, on Charing Cross Road in London, I'd stopped a man, obviously a businessman, who actually showed some interest in the books. I showed him Bhagavad Gita. We were distributing at that time the abridged edition of Bhagavad Gita. He, unusually for businessmen in London, he was quite friendly and took time to talk to me. He said, I already have this. I said, well, this is Bhagavad Gita as it is, but that didn't impress. Actually, that didn't impress him. So I pulled out a Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he showed interest. He showed some interest, so I started reading the flap of the book, the inside cover, front cover, where it says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared 500 years ago. He was a visionary, a mystic, and this and that. And the man interrupted and said, well, wasn't he an incarnation of God? How on earth did a businessman in the 1970s know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was considered an incarnation of God? He gave a good donation. He gave £5, something like that. I asked him to give more. He eventually gave about £8, which was quite unusual in those days. Even to get a £1 donation was quite something. One good experience I had at Mantralayam, which is an important seat of the Madhva Sampradaya. I was going around with my party distributing books, and I thought that we could sell a set of Bhagavatams to the head of the mutt there. We didn't have full I didn't have full sets of English Bhagavatams. I only had a partial set of Hindi because all the Hindi books weren't translated or published at that time. So anyway, I thought I'd try and sell them a set. So I went in their office and spoke with them and said, you can take it for your library. And then they started grilling me and presenting all kinds of Mayavadi arguments, which surprised me, but I didn't realize till afterwards they were testing me to see if I could answer them, because Madhvas are famously strongly against Mayavad. So they gave Mayavad arguments, and I answered quoting from Gita, and this went on for quite some time. And then they happily took the set of books. And then I understood. They were just testing me to see if we knew the stuff. So many things. Okay, that's enough for now on that. Special. Every time a book is distributed, it's special. We don't know what's going to happen, where it will go. Time bombs. Number 3, Srila Prabhupada taught us that the future of ISKCON depends on book distribution. How does this relate to the importance of maintaining the Vaishnava culture that Srila Prabhupada personally practiced and taught us? I'm not exactly sure what this question means, but I suspect that it means that we have to go on preaching and distributing books, and also imbibe Krishna consciousness ourselves. It's not just distributing books, but we ourselves have to live according to the books. Apane achare Prabhuji bere shikai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Krishna consciousness by personally practicing it. Apane na koile dharma shikhan na jai. One cannot teach others to follow dharma unless one personally practices it. So we're not salesmen per se. We are in the position of being servants of the servants of the servants of the servants of the dust of the lotus feet of the servants of the Vaishnavas, and on their order and by their inspiration we have to distribute these books while always cultivating the sense of being the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the devotees of Krishna. What would you advise to someone who wants to distribute books? Well, that's a very big topic. Do it with those who have experience. If you have the fortune to have the association of those who are experienced, they can help you in all ways to imbibe the proper attitude and experience in how to interact with various people, how to not be shy to ask donations from others. Read about Srila Prabhupada's book distribution. I just got an email today from a godbrother of mine in Chicago who was part of the great Chicago O'Hare, Hare Krishna Airport book distribution in the 1970s, Charnakarta Prabhu, that he's just finishing his book on book distribution in the 1970s and their experiences. So read books like that. We have the book, The Nectar of Book Distribution is there. If You Really Want to Please Me, there's a book of quotes from Srila Prabhupada. And if you're not so fortunate to have the association of devotees who are distributing books, actually there are so many devotees distributing so many books, then pray to Krishna. Pray to Guru and Krishna to help. One thing we'll soon understand when we're distributing books is that we can't distribute books. We can simply become an instrument in the desire of the previous acharyas. Become their instrument. Nimittamatram bhavyasavya. Krishna told Arjuna, yeah, you're very expert. You can shoot with both arms, but you can simply become an instrument. You can simply become an instrument in fulfilling my desire. So yeah, it's a matter of attitude, desire, to go on doing it day after day, week after week, year after year. That is the real test. And if you can find any such devotees who have been doing that for years and years and years, non-stop, selflessly, then just fall down at their lotus feet and beg for their blessings. Why should ISKCON leaders foment? I guess that means promote. Why should ISKCON leaders promote Srila Prabhupada's books distribution? Well, there can be several answers to that. The main one has to be that because Srila Prabhupada wanted us to do it, and in this regard, he said, I blindly follow my spiritual master. Now, Srila Prabhupada always taught about not blindly following the spiritual master, but in this matter, in this particular matter, he said, I blindly follow. What do we understand from this? Well, it's not specifically stated in Shastra that one should go out with a bag of books into the streets of the world and distribute books, or door to door, or any such thing. It is a technique for bringing the knowledge of Krishna consciousness to others, which previously wasn't introduced and previously wasn't practicable, because one thing, the printing press and the level of literacy and the level of having money in hand, the consumer society, all those conditions weren't there. It was specifically introduced by Srila Prabhupada, taking the desire of his own spiritual master and ratcheting it up. His spiritual master had wanted the Nadia Prakash, daily newspaper, distributed, and he wanted books printed, and he did personally compose and had so many books printed, as had Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but there wasn't a specific program for going out to the masses and distributing them. That was Srila Prabhupada's contribution, based on his guru's order. If you ever get money, print books, which incidentally was given to Srila Prabhupada by his own Srila Prabhupada at Radha Kund. So it's with faith in the order of Srila Prabhupada that if we distribute these books, the world will change for the better, people will take to Krishna consciousness. We feel that. We feel the spiritual exchange. Even the person who's taking the book may not understand what's going on, and we may also only understand to a small extent, but we can feel the presence of Krishna, that Krishna is manifesting himself in these books and making himself available and to all kinds of people, and we can be the instrument in doing that. That is essential for fulfilling Srila Prabhupada's desire, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire. Srila Prabhupada said that if these two programs, book distribution and farms, are pushed on with great enthusiasm, then, exactly the words I can't remember, then Krishna consciousness will envelop the world. And we should do it. It's a matter of compassion. Compassion doesn't mean looking at people and smiling at them, or opening hospitals, feeding poor people. Well, those are elements of compassion. But real compassion is to help people in the best possible way. And although we can't bring everyone to Krishna consciousness immediately, we can give everyone, or as many people as possible, the opportunity. So therefore, we should push on the distribution of these books. And ISKCON leaders also should know that all auspiciousness comes from that. If we push on the book distribution, then Lakshmi will be liberated for Krishna's service. Those who are managing ISKCON temples and projects know that Lakshmi is very much needed. That's one thing. And devotees will be enlivened. People will come and join. If we distribute books, people will come and join. We may not even know how or why they're coming. They may not even come directly from the distribution of books. But it just creates an atmosphere in which people want to join and take up Krishna consciousness at various levels. I'm fortunate to have several disciples who have taken up this book distribution mission very seriously. And despite all the problems that ISKCON is going through, as long as the book distribution is going on, we can know that all is not lost. There's always great hope as long as the book distribution is going on. Devotees, those who are leaders, they should not only promote the book distribution, but should also promote the study of books. Previously, we had an ethos within ISKCON in which there was a lot of book distribution, but not much emphasis on study. Now, in some quarters, there seems to be more emphasis on study than distribution. Both things should go on. Janma sharthak kari karo para upaka. Make our life successful by studying the books and following what's in the books. And karo para upaka. Benefit others also by distributing these books. Much, 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 much more could be said in answer to all these questions. And I thank the devotees from Brazil for asking me, but I'll not speak much more on this except to say that Brazil and all of South America, way back in the 70s, was famous for massive book distribution. We used to hear about devotees going into the buses at the bus terminals and making announcements and selling books. And in this way, from one city, all the surrounding region, the books would be spread out. So bring it back. Bring back the old spirit. Put book distribution at the center. Everything else will follow. Our movement was really surging forward. So many people were joining. I never went to Latin America, but obviously there's a great scope there for spreading Krishna consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada noticed, and great opportunities for distributing books there. So revive it, do it, distribute these books, make Brazil the world champions of book distribution. I'm saying that because I'm speaking to devotees in Brazil. If I was speaking to devotees in Russia, I'd say, make Russia the world champion. Srila Prabhupada promoted transcendental competition. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha dante nithaya churnakang padayo nipatya kritva chakar kushatame tadaham ravime hey sadhava sakala eva vihaya durat gauranga chandra charne kurutanuraga. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.